Good afternoon, everyone.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District's regular board meeting. Today is Thursday, September 14th, 2023, and we're starting off at 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Board Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Director Sailors, Director Weber, Director Sheets, Director Gould is absent, Director Wood, present. Director Rice, absent, Director Jones is absent, Director Costa,
present,
Director Clark,
Present.
thank you. We have a quorum.
All right. Next, we would like to do the pledge to our flag. Director Weber, would you lead us in the pledge to the flag, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. This Metro Cable announcement. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District will be cable cast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is also webcast at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replays at 4 p.m. on Saturday, September 16th, and 6 p.m. on Monday, September 18th on Channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14. Next, we get to the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do. I have a speaker card from Roger.
Roger, you're up.
Good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Roger Mitchell, Chief House, top staff. I'm here this evening. You've seen me before talk about our fundraising dinner that in the restoration of Reelinda's second ever fire engine. So that this year will be on October 21st, 5 p.m. at the community center. So I'm hoping to see a lot of you there. Most of the board has been there before. And I've always told you a story about normally we have a couple of guest speakers. And this year we have kind of what's known as a world-class speaker. Now, this person might only say a few words, haven't confirmed it with this person, but world-class speaker, and that would happen to be Chief Adam House. So anyway, we thank you for that thought, Chief. I would also like to thank Chief Mitchell. Chief Mitchell took 10 tickets from me to, shall we say, coerce maybe some of the top staff, but we hope with the new Chief, Adam, that they will be there to support his presence. So I'm open to any questions that you might have. August 21st, 5 p.m. I'm October 21st, please. I'm sorry. So 5 p.m. We always say 5 p.m. because if you say 6, you can't start till 6:30 because people are pleasantly late. So we'll probably get started about 5:30, but it's one of the past employees of this district, a master mechanic named Scott Cochran from your shop facility as a master barbecuer. So he's the one that's going to put the food together. And I think Mr. Clark could attest to the quality of the food before. So I'm sure you'll have a pleasant meal and a pleasant evening. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Any other speakers? That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Attendees, if there's anybody who would like to present to the board at this time, please go ahead and raise your hand and I'll give you the option to speak. No response.
All right. Well, tonight we have a full agenda. And we will try to move the items along as fast as possible so that you and the out there can go home and have a pleasant evening. So next item on the agenda is consent items. We Directors, you've had a chance to look over the consent agenda and have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make the motion, please.
Director Weber,
I'll second.
Director Wood.
I'll
Please.
call roll. Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Sheets.
Aye.
Director Wood.
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The consent calendar is approved.
All right. Next, we go into presentation items. The first one is a service delivery update, and that's Deputy Chief Mitchell.
Thank you, President Clark. Good evening, directors. Good to see you all, Chief House and everybody in attendance here and virtually. Going to bring you an update tonight that was going to happen at the last meeting, but was delayed till this meeting. That was promised much earlier in the year when we first started talking about our changes to service delivery that you all gave us direction on. So if we could load the slides, that'd be great. There you go. So just a quick overview. It's a short 90-slide presentation. Just kidding. It's only 9 slides. Just to talk about where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going, and then what we're going to do to measure the success of the actions taken. So just a reflection back in time here. Back on May 3rd, you gave us direction as staff to go look at some options for some changes to our service delivery system due to a number of factors. And following that, we came back to you at the meeting on May 19th at the regular board meeting, and you gave us direction and approved recommendations for moving forward with phases 1 and phase 2 of the proposal that staff presented to you. And then phase 3 would be looked at a future date. Phase 3 or any additional changes will be looked at a future date. The intent of that is just to make sure that we were doing this in a measured approach, that we didn't do too much too fast and not be able to actually see the impact of the changes, and also make sure that we were tracking on the fiscal side of the house, that we weren't doing anything outside of what we had budgeted for. And then during that time also promised you that status update that you're receiving tonight. Following that board meeting back in May, Interim Chief Haverty at that time reached out to all the members of the board and had some ideas about maybe increasing the numbers of changes that we did to kind of blend phase 1 and phase 2 together. The phase 1 was transitioning some FDMs over to MMPs. And then phase 2 was where we would do another FDM to put a squad in and some of those factors. And so talk to you all. There was a consensus agreement, and that's what we were moving forward for, at least for the initial planning. So that's where we started, where we're at. Initially, the implementation occurred. This was the initial plan to occur on September 3rd. The plan was to transition 3 FDMs to MMP units, and then those would result in the transition of 18 firefighters to be able to use in other alternative staffing methodologies. That would include some in the pool, as well as including that squad deployment that we had talked about post board meeting on May 19th. In addition to that, in working with 522, we appreciate their collaboration. We talked about moving some of the locations of existing fire department units and transitioning, or not transitioning, but changing station locations for some of those busier FDM units with the MMP units, to alleviate some of the stress felt by those members just due to hours worked. The FDMs work 48-hour shifts, and the MMP units work 12 or 24-hour shifts. So it gave a better work rest cycle, if you will. So that was the initial plan. So we had to go back to the drawing, not all the way back to the drawing board. We had to go back on August 8th and sit down with 522 and discuss a little bit of a modification to the plan. So just due to the staffing numbers and the availability of folks that were coming through the hiring pipeline, as well as the academy process, we decided and agreed to transition not 3, but 2 units. So back to kind of a phase 1 of what the plan was initially, that resulted in those 12 firefighter positions moving over into the pool to help alleviate the mandatory overtime and obviously ultimately avoid the brownouts that we had been seeing earlier in the year, and give a better again work rest cycle to those folks out in the field. We also moved forward with relocating 2 of those FDM and MMP units at in the areas we had previously identified. And then we would look at stability in the MMP staffing moving forward and continue the hiring processes, which is still ongoing, which is where we're going next, to be able to pursue that additional FDM transition and then bring on a squad unit in the near future. So a couple of other items that occurred when we did these changes that were really better efficiencies. The MMP members were now going to be supervised by the station captains rather than have an external supervision from EMS 24. Really, if you look at Metro Fire and how we operate, we want our folks to be part of the big family of Metro Fire and not have a separate chain of command. And so this was a really, really positive thing that came out of this movement or this project, having those station captains be the direct line supervision for those members that are in our fire stations, running the calls right alongside the firefighters and becoming one Metro Fire. So that was a big change that frankly was overdue. And I'm really proud to say we were able to get that done. And then working with a number of staff in payroll as well as HR and IT, we were able to update the time card process. Before it was kind of clunky and there was a little bit different of a process. We're able to better make that a more efficient process so that it's more in alignment and took less staff time, as well as less impact on the members to get that done. In alignment with the supervision, we also updated the telestaff roster to reflect the location of those units. So the appearance of those units, now they were showing under the fire stations versus being a separate staffing model throughout that document. And then I mentioned the switching locations of the 2 FDMs and the MMP units to help alleviate that time on task and the work rest cycles that we talked about before and allow for some more training to occur and things like that. And then I think it was important that we recognize that the district and 522 came together because of the transition project, and we just don't know what we don't know. We're able to agree to a contingency plan for staffing to make sure that we weren't in a position where we just didn't have the ability to staff up those transport units. If there was an unintended circumstances or unknown circumstance that arose where we had a number of members that were unavailable to staff those new units because we're growing that MMP program, we have some ability to bring some members back and be able to staff those ambulances to make sure we didn't decrease our service delivery. So I'm proud to get that done too. So where are we going next as we continue to work through the transition? We're still working through the hiring process. I know we're going through and getting ready to start an MMP Academy 23-2 here in the near future, which will bring on some more folks to be able to put into the system and get out there and help provide that service to the public. That will start in October, and then we'll be able to look again at that additional service delivery change that I mentioned earlier about the squad unit and some of those alternative models. And that's what talked about there at the bottom of the slide. We'll be able to use those firefighters on a transition from a FDM to be able to staff that squad unit. We'll also continue to look at the fiscal impacts on that, as well as the supply chain to get additional units, delivered, actual squad units and things like that. That hasn't totally been solved yet. And so we're looking at how to do that better and more efficient, and what do we have currently in the system to be able to do that. And then again, I think it's important to recognize, as we've been talking for a long time, about making sure we're staying in alignment with the board's direction, strategic plan, and the standards of cover project that's ongoing. So all of those parts and pieces are part of what we're working on. And then the metrics for the changes to see what the impacts are that we're having so that we do this in a way that we can measure. First part is that impact on the service delivery to the community. Are we able to maintain the resources in the system? Just like I talked about, being able to staff them and keep them out there, and what does that look like for our number of members in the system? And then also it was talked about before, Director Sheets brought this up before about the CQI, monitoring trends and identifying positives and potential and negative changes on the patient care end of things to make sure we're watching that very, very closely. So the EMS CQI is watching that. And then this is the important piece here. One of the important pieces is probably the most, is the impact on staffing and the member well-being, measuring if there's a reduction in brownouts and a reduction in mandatory overtimes, as well as being able to maintain those staffing levels. And then finally, on the fiscal impact, just make sure that what we have thought we were going to have happen with this change actually is happening on the fiscal side of the house, to make sure that that's continuing to track like we anticipated it. So, and that is the end of my report, and I will be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Do we have any questions? You have a comment? Oh, Director Webb?
Exactly what we've been talking about, decreasing the brownouts, potentially getting the squad in place, but everything that we have brought to you and you to us, it's coming true, and phenomenal job for
Thank you.
Chief House, and your entire team. Thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
good team effort. Thank you, Director Weber. Appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you said you're going to be looking at the metrics. What's the timing of that? Is it like a 3-month review and you come back to the board, or is it an annual review? What's that look like?
So we anticipate a lot of this also ties into the standards of cover, Director Costa, on what that looks like. And so it will be a regular update as far as like a timing thing. I anticipate actually after this first couple of months here that we're, this went in September 3rd. Probably as we get into this next MMP Academy, we're going to look really hard at that to get some initial factors and making sure that we're tracking. It'll be very quick on that end, but I do anticipate a regular report back on how things are going, and that'll be part of our process moving forward with those standards of covers update and things like that too. So
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. And great work.
thank you.
All right. Hearing none,
Okay.
thank you very much for that. Okay.
Make one additional comment that this is an opportunity that staff and labor work very side by side on. And we often use the term that we're visionaries as Metro Fire. This is another example in the region. We're taking the lead. I've been advised that one of our partnering agencies are now going to look at putting 2 additional squads in, also following our lead on this model. So this is another success for Metro Fire.
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation, Chief Mitchell.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Right. Next, we have the financial planning and budget policy, administrative policy 20221.01. And that would be CFO 2.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Fire Chief House, colleagues, and members of the public. For this item, I'll be presenting a new policy, the financial planning and budget policy. This administrative policy was brought to the policy committee on August 10th, and the committee asked that it go to the full board for consideration as well. Before I go too far, I want to acknowledge in my presentation, there are neither dollar signs or boxes. So we're in unfamiliar territory for your CFO. Hang on. Okay. Before continuing, I do want to mention we're especially pleased to be able to present this because the policy, as you'll see, we think it will improve transparency and predictability and stability of our budget processes. It's based on best practices of the Government Finance Officers of America and the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers. So 2 leading organizations in the budget world. And we did get some support from or examples, I should say, from other local agencies, including Orange County Fire Authority. So with this slide, I'm just going to go over the highlights for the next few slides here. So first off, it defines commonly and critically important budget terms such as the balanced budget and constant staffing and operating revenues. A balanced budget is now defined as a budget where operating revenues and one-time transfers in are greater than operating expenditures. It allows us to recognize one-time revenues for the fiscal year and determine whether the budget is in fact balanced. And this has been existing practice, but we're seeking through this policy to memorialize it. It also memorializes the existing budget development process milestones, articulating a timeline and principal steps for developing the preliminary, the final, and the mid-year budget. Specific obligations by the finance division and other divisions are also spelled out more in the policy. It also describes the existing process and approval levels needed for budget transfers. We currently have forms to do that and which guide when we would come to the board at what thresholds and so forth. It's now spelled out in the budget, not just on a form. The budget policy, I should say, not just a form. And it finally expresses the district's intent to propose balanced budgets for all funds. Continuing on, the budget policy includes a statement of intent that the district will build up balances for capital expenditures and accelerating payments for unfunded liabilities, like your SCRS payments or PERS or OPEB liabilities. It also requires that all known prior year budget adjustments affecting the general fund reserve calculation for that year be recognized in the final budget. So this is a change of practice now where instead of waiting to the mid-year to recognize savings, it's typically savings, but it could be expenditures. at the end of the fiscal year, say on June 30th, instead of waiting until the mid-year budget, which is in March, we're now doing that much earlier. We're doing it in the final budget. It is common practice, and it is generally bringing more transparency to the budget. You'll be able to see sooner what actually happened in the prior year. It won't include every piece, because some pieces do need to go through the auditing process before they can be finalized, but it includes big pieces like property taxes. If we get a property tax adjustment in time, we will include it in the final. Constant staffing, there's often savings we find at the end of the fiscal year. We'll be able to recognize that in the final budget. And incidentally, the final budget I'm presenting later tonight includes these pieces. So we've already begun to implement that. Next, it articulates how the general fund reserve is calculated, establishing a specific calculation intended to ensure consistency from budget to budget. In my couple of years here, there have been some questions about how we calculate reserve, and some people having different perspectives on how it should be done. It's now spelled out. There's clarity. You should have an expectation of how it's going to be calculated. And on this slide, last, it limits the expenditure of one-time revenues to ongoing expenditures, and states that the district will pay for ongoing expenditures from recurring operating revenue sources. The budget policy, also the financial planning and budget policy, shorthand budget policy, also identifies how any projected general fund reserves over 15%, what we call excess reserves, how they will be allocated, 1/2 to capital projects and 1/2 to long-term liabilities. The policy also defines the process for calculating labor costs as a share of revenues, incorporating the definition of operating revenues that includes all general fund transfers and any statutorily driven or expected transfers in. That was the practice for 23-24 as we're developing the budget. But I know in recent years there's been some variation, so we're just adopting the practice that we put into this budget, was discussed among this board earlier this year as well. And then finally, it explains the purpose of the district's 5-year budget forecast, describes when it'll be presented, and notes that it is subject to greater variability the further out you go in the years. So as noted on your agenda, this is just information for any questions you may have about the budget. There's no action required.
Do we have any questions of our CFO?
No, sir. I have a comment. This is great work. Thank you very much. It really provides a lot of clarity and just transparency. And I really like the way it's organized and presented. So thank you.
Thank you.
I completely agree with that. It's leads to less confusion and questions. Okay. Thank you, Mr. O'Toole.
Thank you.
Can we turn the lights back on so I can see what I'm doing here, please? Yeah. No, thank you. For action items, we got to see what we're doing here.
Watch your eyes.
Thank you, Board Clerk. All right, next we move on to action items. The first item on the first action item is adopt a resolution approving a fiscal year 2023-24, 2027-28 capital improvement program, or parenthesis CIP plan, and the presentation will be done by administrative analyst Erin Castleberry is who will.
Thank you, Director Clark.
On this.
Good evening, everyone. Well, you're gonna hit the lights again, Marty. You don't have to. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm happy to provide an overview of our final revised capital improvement plan for fiscal year 23-24 with projections through 27-28. All right, so as a reminder, as you know, the purpose of the CIP is to organize, facilitate, and memorialize the district's capital needs. And we do this by identifying what those needs are and then planning for the funding of these needs to ensure that we can support the physical infrastructure of the district. So the CIP is one component of the strategic planning framework. If you remember this from the strategic planning workshop earlier this year, you can see that it's one piece and it feeds directly into the financial management processes. So the CIP is an annual effort. It kicks off in December each year with basically capital project submissions are due in February. In March, the committee reviews and ranks the projects. And then finance prepares a financing plan between March and April. The executive team reviews this plan in April and makes a funding recommendation alongside their review of the preliminary budget. Then we prepare the proposed CIP based on that recommendation, and we bring that to the board in May alongside the preliminary budget. So what we're seeing tonight is an update to the one that you all approved back in June. Between July and August, we prepare an update, and that's basically in consideration of any final budget updates, any actual project expenditures, projects that maybe were slated for last year and were not completed for whatever reason, any changes to costs where we have changes between budgeted costs versus actual costs that we know. So we make all those updates and we roll that into a revised report. And then we bring that back to you in September for approval alongside the final budget. And all of those numbers get rolled into final budget. So the updated 5-year projection of capital needs totals $201.6 million and is broken down as follows. And this reflects a $1.1 million increase over what was projected in the preliminary CIP you approved in June. You can see that there were increased costs in apparatus and equipment, in new construction, in facilities repair and replacement projects, and also in personal protective equipment projects. And we'll take a closer look at those increases a little later in the presentation. So changes between the CIP approved in June and the one presented to you tonight are 6 additional projects were submitted between the preliminary CIP and the final CIP. And we're reflecting an increase of 9 total recommended projects from 14 to 23. The total cost submitted was increased by $800,000, and the total recommended cost of approved projects is an increase of $4.6 million. So the new recommended CIP does include some changes to 5 projects that were already approved, and these changes simply reflect actual costs versus projected costs. So when we prepare this in May, a lot of times we're using estimated budgetary figures for procurement. These reflect changes in those costs based on what we know now. So there was an increase of $405,000 in these project costs. Next is the added projects. So as I said, there were 9 additional projects being recommended for approval in the revised CIP. So 3 of these projects were already begun in the previous fiscal year. And it's important to note that while these projects are reflected as additions in the CIP, most of these projects were actually already funded in the preliminary budget. But after we saw preliminary budget and we're reviewing it, we kind of made the determination that some of these should have been categorized as a capital project, and therefore we're including them now in the CIP. So in total, the only actual added costs on top of what was in the preliminary budget are for these 2 projects here, which are the power loader and gurney replacement project and the automated chest compression device replacement project. Which totaled about $2.9 million. So the rest of these costs, as I stated, were already actually included in the preliminary budget that you approved. So the updated CIP reflects 59 total submitted projects for fiscal year 23-24, with 23 total projects recommended for approval. The total cost for all projects submitted for consideration is $101.7 million. And the total cost of the 23 recommended projects is $43.2 million. $35.2 million is recommended for carryover projects. And carryover projects are basically projects that were approved in previous fiscal years or included in previous CIPs. but were not completed in their, either because of supply chain issues or because they're intended as a multi-year project. So those are basically carried forward until they're complete. So I had a question about how much was previously spent on the carryover projects. And so 4 million has already been invested in previous fiscal years on our carryover projects. So the 35.2 million is the remaining amount on these projects that are carrying forward. And then we have 8 million recommended in our fiscal year 23-24 projects. So carryover projects, as I said, make up the largest portion of the recommended funding at 35.1 million. They are categorized here: apparatus and equipment replacement at 9 million, new construction projects at 23.7 million, and land acquisition at 2.4 million. New projects. $13 new projects totaling 8 million are now being recommended for approval in fiscal year 23-24. These projects include 6.3 million for apparatus equipment and replacement, 833,000 for PPE replacement, 714,000 for facilities repair and replacement projects, and 200,000 for our station access control project, which has been grant funded. That last project there. So 36 of the 59 projects are not being recommended for approval in fiscal year 23-24, resulting in a total unfunded need of 58.5 million. This need includes 24 million in new construction, 18.2 million in apparatus and equipment replacement, 12.2 million in facilities repair and replacement projects, 3.7 million in other miscellaneous projects, and 270,000 in personal protective equipment replacement. So our next steps, once the revised CIP is approved tonight, staff will be able to initiate these projects, initiate the new projects, and move forward with implementing the CIP. And then we do it all over again, starting in December. So we have a couple months off, and then we're back to CIP developments again in preparation of next year's CIP. So that concludes my presentation tonight, and I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Castleberry? Do not. Hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation. Next we go to, we need to, I know, we got to adopt the resolution. Yeah, we got to adopt it. It's an action item.
Okay.
Recommendation to adopt the resolution.
Okay.
Second.
Director Wood has a motion and second by Director Costa. Please call the roll, please.
Yes, Director Sailors, Director Weber, Director Sheets, Director Wood, Director Rice is absent. I don't know why I keep saying his name. Director Costa.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Next, we are gonna, we have a next action item is adopting a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2023-24 final budget. And the presentation is going to be done by, of course, our CFO O'Toole. The way I will, after his presentation, the way we want to do the deal with this is I'll call out each resolution and then we get a motion a second. That way we can move it along faster, being that we have such a heavy schedule tonight. Mr. O'Toole, please proceed.
What does that?
Thank you and good evening again. I'll be presenting the final budget for fiscal year 23-24. And it's built on the most recent approved budget, the 23-24 preliminary budget, which you approved in June. So we're talking about changes over the last couple months tonight. And as well as looking back at changes from the prior year, fiscal year 22-23. So our agenda for tonight is fairly straightforward. We'll be looking at the fiscal year 23-24 final budget overview. I have an overview slide for the high level numbers that are often asked about in our budget. And then we'll look more carefully at revenues and expenditures. And we'll include a long-term forecast, which has been updated since the preliminary and incorporates the policy we looked at earlier tonight. And a quick reference to the CIP and where we'll, because of the CIP funding is built into the budget, and note the projects there again. And finally, a recommendation and any questions you may have. So this is the summary slide, if you will, of the budget. You can see general fund and all funds displayed there. So in terms of how big our budget is, if you look at the all funds column, our revenues are 322 million, and our expenditures are 351 million, and our net transfers are almost 15 million, 14.9. We have a negative change in fund balance, which I'll speak to just in a moment. On the general fund side, 271 million, expenditures of 285, but with net transfers in of 20, we have a change in fund balance of almost 6 million. For reference, in the preliminary budget, the change in fund balance was about 1.2 million. So we're doing the transfers to the general fund have increased substantially since the preliminary budget and the final. The all funds column there, the 14.3 million, what that represents is not negative fund balance. It's a change in fund balance across other funds. And as we'll see in a couple slides, the special projects fund is 12.9 million. And that is for the Zinfandel training facility, and that is being mostly depleted this year. So that's a significant change in that fund balance. We're also spending a little more out of the development impact fees fund for capital related projects. So you do have a negative change in fund balance, but as you'll see, no negative fund balances themselves. I'll show you that on the next slide. But before we go to that, I want to just note the at the bottom there, the reserve is the other question. How big is the budget? And the second question is, how big is your reserve? We're projecting a reserve at year end of 41.2 million, and that's 14% as noted on the slide. When we presented this for the preliminary budget, the figure was 37.3 million and 12.8%. So it has crept up a bit, and we're getting a little closer to the 15% goal, but not quite there for the projected year end. This is in fact our largest general fund reserve ever, but of course our expenditures are increasing, so the reserve percentage is not quite climbing as high as it has been once before. So with this slide, this is, I know this is a busy slide, but it's important, so I want to spend a few minutes on it. What you're seeing across the second row there is 7 funds, the 7 major funds that are part of our budget. And then the first gray line at the top is your starting balance. So on June 30th, what was the balance for each of those funds? And then let's say the unshaded 4 rows that below, that is the activity that's occurring during the fiscal year. And then the shaded row at the bottom is the ending balance. Think of it as, I've used this metaphor before. This is your savings and your checking account. So the savings is the gray rows. That's where you're saving for a rainy day. You're going to buy that house or boat or whatever, and whatever your sort of major purchase you have in mind. And then the unshaded rows, that's more of your transactional, your checking account. So ins and outs of paying your mortgage, paying the rent, whatever the case may be. So kind of that's what you're looking at for each of the funds in theory. Let's see. So just to start with the general fund, these are numbers I mostly went over. So we had at the end of last year, we had a balance of 35.3 million. We had the revenues and expenditures I just mentioned showed on the prior slide. And then we end up with that number also just shown for almost 41.2 million. Capital facilities, we had an ending balance or starting balance, if you will, on July 1, 23 of 6 million. We have expenditures of 19.9 million. We have other transfers in of 14.7. So we have a negative change in fund balance of almost 5.2, but the fund itself has a positive fund balance of 843,000. In the leased properties fund, not as nearly as much activity, but you can see there was a starting balance of 713. We have revenues of almost 1.2, expenditures and transfers leave us with a balance of 1.2. The grants fund is a timing issue there. The starting balance is negative there, and then we get in the revenues and the expenditures, and then it's a grants fund. It's essentially a cash fund. If we're doing our job, we're getting in grants and we're spending that money as quickly as we can. So the ending balance will be 0. And that's what we like to see in our grants fund. The development impact fees fund, as I mentioned, we had a balance of 4.2. We're going to spend a little more from it this year because of that CIP and some of the capital investments and capital projects and fire station investments. that were just mentioned in the CIP presentation. So the change in fund balance is -3 from the 4.2. You end up with a balance of about 870,000 on June 30th next year. The IGT fund, we had a little bit of a carryover balance of 866,000. Revenue is really quite large from what we've seen historically. We're now to 42 million there, expenditures of 14, and then transfers out. As we know now, the IGT fund is going to the general fund. Those are the functions that it serves now, and so we will deplete that. We expect to deplete that fund by the end of this fiscal year. And the special projects fund just mentioned, so we had a balance of about 12.9 when we started. We expect to spend all of it and then end with a balance of 0. So, and then the totals at the right, the all funds in the unshaded rows are numbers we just went over. So we had the revenues of 322, expenditures of 351, and so forth. But we will, across all funds, have an ending fund balance of about 44 million. So as you can see, a lot of our fund balance is general fund. Okay, so now we'll look at general fund revenues and expenditures, starting with on the revenue side. The shown on the budget, there's a 271 million. That's actually a $16.4 million increase from the prior year. Property taxes are up by 10.6 million. They're just at 202 million. Charges for services are up by 4.3 million. Part of that is the medic fees, which are now at 46.9 million. That's a $2.4 million increase and includes the July 2023 fee adjustment that the board adopted in June. And for historical perspective, this is expected to be our 11th consecutive year of property tax growth and our 13th consecutive year of total revenue growth. So the train rolls on with positive property tax growth. And as you'll see, we expect that to continue in our forecasted years. Net IGT revenues, there's the total there. We expect the revenue transfer to general fund to be 29.2 million, which is $20 million more than last year. So real significant jump. Of course, last year was a 6-month year because the program started on January 1, 2023. So you got 6 months of revenue, but still it's a sizable jump. Total revenues and other financing sources, 291.3 million, which is $32.4 million higher than last year. Let's talk about IGT funds for just a moment, as some of this is a refresher. The IGT funds revenues are transferred to the general fund, as I just stated, and as noted on the slide, there are 2 programs. There's the voluntary rate range program piece and the public provider ground emergency medical transport program piece. The VRRP, it's an intergovernmental transfer program, of course, and district funds are transferred to the Department of Healthcare Services, who combines other local agency funds who are performing similar medical transport services and to pull down federal funds. And we expect in 23-24 to receive 16.3 million in revenues, but of course we have to put up 6.7 ourselves. So the net gain is about 9.6 million on VRRP. On public provider ground emergency medical transport program, it also supports certain Medi-Cal beneficiaries, replaces the former GEMT program with a flat payment of $1,065 per transport, which is substantially higher than previously, as you see there. But significantly in 23-24, we expect 27 million. We expect 27 million in revenues, and then we have to IGT, we have to put up 7.4 million. So you get a net income of 19.6. So you take the 9.6 and the 19.6 and you get the 29 million that was just shown on a previous slide. Moving from revenues to expenditures, again, projected expenditures of 285.4 million, which is 27.5 million more than last year, which is a 10.6% increase. The labor budget is a large part of our budget, of course. 240.1 million includes both compensation and benefits, and that's 20.1 million or 9.1% higher than 22-23. Labor costs will be, as noted on this slide, will be 82.5% of general fund revenues and net IGT transfers in. Again, that is the calculation based on the policy that was before you tonight. And service and supplies, as noted, will be 42.5 million, which is a 22.5% increase over 22-23. So a larger percentage rate increase in service and supplies than we saw in the labor budget. So on the expenditure side, there are on the total compensation noted, there's 134.4 million. And of the $240 million total increase, and wages are $11.8 million higher. That's reflecting the 6% raise in January 2024, pursuant to the most recent memorandum of understanding that is built into the budget. We also have decreased constant staffing overtime of $5 million. The reason for that decrease is mainly two factors. We do budget all positions as filled when we start the fiscal year, so that reduces the constant staffing estimate, if you will. But also the MMP program the presentation we heard earlier tonight, those dozen firefighters who would go into the pool, we budgeted in that savings, so it does reflect the more updated numbers that you received in your presentation tonight. Also, we have incentive pays for EMT, paramedic, education, hazmat, longevity, added 2.9 million. The employee behavioral wellness incentive added 2.8 million. And so moving from compensation to benefits is the total cost 105.8 million is shown there, which is a 6.6% increase. We of course have CalPERS pension increases. They tend to climb just about every year, 3.8 million this year. We also, medical costs also went up by 3 million. That's we're anticipating this fiscal year. SCRS, we increased the contribution by 1.8 million. And on the negative side, if you will, we decreased our workers' compensation costs by 3.3 million. So a pretty substantial cut. It is that the estimate of cost, which is actually 3.6 million, is based on more of a historical trend and what we see on a month-to-month basis. That number does not anticipate that we'd see the spikes that we saw in 22-23. So if we do have large spikes again, you know, we may be talking about tapping the $4 million reserve or transfers or some other mechanism to close that gap if it exists. Okay, moving from labor to service and supplies, again, it's a $42.5 million expenditure. Listed there on the slide are some of the main costs. So we have service costs are a big expense, 2.4 million. The largest part of that, 1.6 million of that is the AMR contract increase for the additional 2 medics. And we also have significant costs this year in building services for repairs to kitchens and roofs and related to fires and winter storms and so forth, the repair costs that go with that. Vehicle maintenance costs continue to creep up, as I've reported in the last couple of budget reports. So we're budgeting a $542,000 increase. Computer services, clothing supplies, and medical supplies also increased, in partly related to the MMP, adding the MMPs too, which need those medical supplies and equipment. Moving on to capital outlay. So the total spending in the capital outlay budget is 40.2 million. Just want to be clear not to confuse. The capital outlay budget includes the CIP, but it also includes items that aren't in the CIP because they're $50,000 or less. So don't look for an even tie in the two numbers. But it's 40.2 million. So it's and 14.6 million of that is committed from the Capital Facilities Fund. And major projects are listed there: Type 1 engines, 6 new ambulances, remounts, and the gurneys and power loaders previously mentioned. There's a 2.4 million for that. We do have some major capital outlay facilities projects coming up, mostly from the Development Impact Fees Fund and the Special Projects Fund. So Grant Line 220, the land acquisition, the Vineyard Spring Station, the build. So moving on to that phase, 10.6 million, and the training center, of course, with the 12.9 million we saw before. Turning to the forecast. So I'm putting this all on one slide, but I think it's important to see together. The green line there is 15%. If you look at the far right of the slide, it says 15%. So that's showing where in our forecast, if we expect to hit the 15%. And over the 5 years, the answer you can see in the red line is no. We anticipate the dipping down from the 14% in this year, with the increases in services supplies, but largely labor-related costs with the MOU that will reduce our balance of, as well as slowing property tax growth, which I'll show in the bottom part of the slide in a moment, or describe that, is going to reduce our reserve to 11.8%, excuse me, in 4.25, and then 12.2%, 12.6%, and then the far right red line, it's actually getting up over 14.2%. That is the projection. The blue bars are the property tax revenue amounts. Excuse me, those are the general fund reserve amounts. So the 41 million we mentioned for 23-24 ties to the far bar at the left. And then by 27-28, we expect to have more than 45 million in general fund reserves. So the table below is it's a little askew because I'm attempting to line up the years. For 23-24, the bar above with reserve ties to the box below. So there's that property tax number again, 202 million. That's what we expect for this fiscal year, which is a 5.6% growth from the prior year. But then as you look a little further out, we do expect property tax growth to slow down to 3.2% and staying in that range for the rest of the forecast. You know, this information is based on what's provided by our property tax forecast consultant, and we check in every few months for updates and so forth. But this is the latest and greatest in terms of what the projected growth would be. So as I mentioned, I would tie to the CIP briefly, so I won't restate Aaron's presentation. But again, the total plan is 43.2 million, includes 23 projects, 13 new CIP projects at 4.1 million, and 10 carryover projects from 34.4. So largely a carryover CIP plan here. From the funds themselves, where we are drawing from, the capital facilities funds contributes 14.6 million, development impact fees 13.1, as noted on the side, special projects fund, again, the 12.9, with lesser amounts by the general grant and leased properties fund. So in summary, the district's budget is balanced. We are adding 5.9 million to the general fund reserve. And the reserve percentage is increasing from 12.8%, which what we had in the prelim, to now 14%. The district reliance on IGT fund is increasing. The IGT funds are substantially increasing this year, and they're substantially helping our budget and our bottom line. The 22-23 MOU agreement is fully funded through 23-24. It includes the 6% compensation increase effective on January 1, 2024. And again, we expect persistent budget pressures and lower general fund reserves in the forecast as tax revenue, property tax growth slows and cost growth, labor, service, supplies, capital infrastructure accelerates. That's built into the forecast that you saw earlier. Before going to the recommendation, I just want to note some changes that have been made to the budget. When you see the budget, if you were to look no further than the cover, it may look similar from year to year, but there have actually been quite a few changes over the last 2 years. And I just wanted to take a moment to recognize what they are. Many of them are. This is not the complete list. Last year, we added I won't go through every line, but last year we did add a forecast. The 5-year forecast is now included in the budget for anyone to pick up and see at that point what was the district anticipating in terms of their general fund forecast. The CIP was new last year. The budget also tied to that. We have district comparisons. So we compared ourselves to Orange County Fire District. We have information on demographics and employer. We have regional information about, so if someone picks it up, they want to know more about the area that we serve and the community. We have that information now. Importantly, if you dig into the division section, each division now has performance measures, has goals, has recent successes. So there's a lot of good information about what's going on in the department, what they were able to achieve in the prior year. And acronyms and budget definitions don't hurt either. So we added those last year. This year, we added a few more pieces. Labor costs as share of revenues, as shown there. We added the description of current debt obligations, so getting into the details there, how we make that calculation. Our budget process is described. We have our strategic plan bullets are in there now, so people want to be able to find our strategic plan. Major goals are listed in there as well. We have an economic outlook. All these pieces, well, the pieces from 22-23 were very helpful in us securing the CSMFO Excellence Budget Award. And we'll be going for that again this year, of course. I think we have a good shot at it, but also the changes made in 23-24 are intended for us to go for the Excellence Award from the Government Finance Officers Association of America, which is the national award in budget excellence. And We won't find out till spring, but I think we have a good shot. I'll just leave it at that. And so finally, that is the 23-24 final budget. My recommendation is to approve the resolutions adopting the final budget and amendments for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Great, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Very good. Much improved. Okay, do we have any questions before we go on to adopting this? Okay, well, we're gonna adopt this resolution by, what I'm gonna do is we got A through H, and the first thing I'm gonna do is resolution 2023-24 final budget for the general operating fund 12A, but after that, I am not gonna go through the 2022 fiscal budget. I'm just gonna go operating fund, capital facilities fund, and so on and so forth. That way we move this thing along. Okay, the first motion that we need in a second would be the general operating fund 212A. We have a motion?
I will make that motion.
Weber and Wood. Call the roll, please, Marnie.
Yes,
I
Director
mean,
Sailors,
Judge-
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets, Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we go to B, capital facilities fund 212D.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Director Weber and a second by Director Wood. Call the roll,
Direct-
please.
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Next, we go to C, pension obligation bond fund 212E.
I'll make that motion.
Director Wood,
Second.
Director Costa. Call the roll, please.
Costa, yes. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Next, we go to D, the grants fund 212G. Motion,
I'll make that motion.
Director Wood,
Second.
Director Costa.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Next, we go to E, development impact fees fund 212I. No, that's L, sorry.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
No, it's I.
Aye.
Oh, it's I.
Yes, it's I first.
That's right.
Okay.
Capitalized.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
who made the motion second on that?
Motion.
Director Costa. Oh, yeah.
Costa
Costa
and
and
Wood.
Wood.
Okay,
second.
perfect. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Next, we go to F, lease properties fund 212L.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Director Wood, Director Wood motion, second by Director Costa.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
So we go to G, IGT fund 212M.
I'll make that motion.
Director Wood,
Second.
Director Costa.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Finally, we get
One more.
to H, yeah, special project funds 212S.
I'll make that motion.
Director Wood,
Second.
Director Costa.
Great. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Third action item is the bid award for power loader gurney replacement, and that would be BC Scott Perryman and EMS Captain Jeremy Crawford. To the podium, please.
Good evening, President, Directors, Chief House. Thank you for having us tonight. Chief Wernicke had a family obligation, so he asked us to step in as his young Padawans and give us an opportunity to learn and to grow. And we're the best of what's left, so we're here tonight. We're excited to represent the EMS division here at Metro Fire. We run a lot of medical aids, and our main priority is, of course, excellent patient care. But then we also have to balance that side of making sure that our members are able to provide that good patient care and look at their longevity and their wellness. There's a few instances when you get the perfect opportunity of excellent patient care and improving it, and also helping out our members, improving it at the exact same time. And this is one of those opportunities that Captain Crawford is going to talk to us about in our power load gurneys.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, all. Jeremy Crawford, Captain with the EMS Division. Thank you, Arthur, and the IT Division. They are great. I want to give them a quick shout out. I go over there a lot, but they're very accommodating and very helpful. So thank you to them. As Ms. Castleberry noted in her CIP presentation, this gurney and power loader project did get added. We've got quite the fleet that does need replacement, and that kind of comes, as with Chief Perryman was saying, with the amount of calls that we run and the wear and tear that we put on this equipment. So just some quick historical context for those that you may not know. When ambulances started, personnel would wheel the patient on the gurney to the back of the ambulance, open the doors, get it as close as possible, physically lift it up with the weight of the gurney and the patient, lower it down to collapse the wheels, and then from the ground, pick up the gurney with the patient on it to load it into the ambulance. Not only is that wear and tear and strenuous on the back of the people, it was also dangerous for the patients because you had the risk of someone losing their balance, tripping on a crack in the sidewalk, whatever the case may be, and potentially dropping that patient. Over time, that has evolved. Eventually, someone was smart enough to mount a hook in the floor of the back of the ambulance, and we could at least hook the gurney onto the back and do that lifting from standing heights. But again, it's still wear and tear in the bodies and slightly risky to the patients. So as you see in the slide there, it was about 2014 when we purchased these power loaders, and they were amazing. And I can tell you, even from firsthand experience, some of our more senior folks at the time that rarely worked the ambulances, but when they did and they saw those, their eyes popped wide open and said, "This is amazing." It is a lifesaver and a backsaver. It does get used often, as Chief Perryman alluded to, with the number of calls we run, and you all have done the ride-alongs and been in the stations and probably seen it firsthand, up and down, up and down, up and down. The service life of these units runs about 8 years. We've been 9 years, coming quickly up on 10. So you can imagine the wear and tear that has come to these units and resulted in that. There's the picture of the power loader. You see some of the features that comes with the new system, meeting safety standards and all those things. And like we talked about, the strain to our backs and the safer loading for our patients that we take to the hospital. A nice and very important feature for us, and a very nice upgrade for these units. These power loaders have Bluetooth technology, so our folks in the fleet division can actually track and look at units on our rigs, see which one's getting used a lot, which one may not be getting used much at all. So we can swap those out and kind of distribute the usage as we need to help maintain the life and usability of this equipment. And being such a large client that we are and a high priority for Stryker, Matt Moose in our fleet division does a good job of maintaining and fixing these when need be, if he can. But we've got that direct connection and relationship with Stryker. We've got a certified technician in the area that when Matt calls, they come and will make the fixes for us as need be. So moving forward, like I said, Ms. Castleberry noted this in her presentation. Roughly 2.8, as you can see there in the fiscal impact. We did this or want to move forward with this purchase with the Savick Group is the company that we used is actually, and finance can confirm this with you as well, but saved us some money going through them, and they already did the 3-bid process for us, so it makes it a seamless transition. Along with that seamless transition is the training that would be needed for our folks. It's essentially the same as what we're already using today. So it's not going to be this huge orientation or trying to get our folks educated. They're already familiar with the system and how it works. So should I give my recommendation now, or do you want to answer questions? Then I give it. This is my first time. Make a recommendation now. Okay. Staff recommends that the board approve a bid award to Stryker for the purchase of 30 Power Pro 2 cots and 38 power loaders, utilizing a master cooperative purchasing agreement administered by the Savick Buying Group. And now I'm happy to answer any questions you've got.
Did a great job for your first time.
Oh, thank you.
We have any questions? Oh, okay, we have a comment.
Presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I honestly can't take credit for it. I'm just the messenger. Captain Brett Randall, his last day in EMS was today. This was his baby, but again, with collaboration with finance and everything we do here is a team effort. So, but yeah, I'm just the messenger, but appreciate it.
I have a question. What do we do with the units that we are,
So the units we currently have actually been leased. And so with the, Stryker will get those back.
oh,
And the sooner we move forward with the deal, there's about, I think, a 6-month window to where we still have those under contract. We're actually going to get credit for those that get returned once we get
excellent.
the replacements, the new units.
Yeah, that's a great tool that we utilize in our ambulances. It saves not only all these issues with the workman's comp and all the
Absolutely,
injuries and all that kind of
absolutely.
stuff.
And it's also worth noting, if you saw in Miss Castleberry's line item there was the power loaders and the Lucas device, the automatic CPR devices.
Yeah,
That was only listed at $81,000, and not that $81,000 isn't anything to scoff at, but if
Right.
you look at the cost of this medical equipment, that's because we learned instead of doing a bulk order and having to replace our whole complement, is moving forward, we're purchasing a few at a time in incremental purchases as opposed to one large order. So moving forward with the gurneys, we look to do that as well as part of the CIP. But as I said, unfortunately, we've had this current fleet of what we have for so long, and they're well beyond their life. So once we get these replaced and moving forward, we're gonna be smarter and making those smaller purchases.
Excellent.
A little more often.
Director Sailors, you have a comment or?
Loaders and gurneys, is there a weight limit on them now?
There is, I believe it's 750 pounds with the newer gurneys that we would be purchasing.
Great.
Wow.
Yes,
Do we ever test those limits?
Yes.
the manufacturers do.
Oh my gosh, 700 pounds. Wow, that's heavy.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. We adopt staff recommendation.
We have a motion by Director Wood, a second by Director Sheets. Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Board Clerk.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Hi.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you
That was
all.
Excellent. All right. Last item on the action item is election of special district representatives to Sacramento Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO. Well, basically the recommendation is,
Yeah.
did
go
you want
ahead.
to go first?
No, go. I mean, you have the staff report and
Right.
Right.
The recommendation is to cast a vote for candidate for the special district commission seat number 7 to LAFCO and authorize the board clerk to submit the official ballot with the selected candidate and whether they should conduct future election proceedings electronically. You've all read do you have anything to add? To that book?
no, we just, we need to, the board has to agree to select one candidate.
Yes.
And then answer the 2 questions, yes or no, regarding the special district elections being conducted electronically
Oh,
and whether we wish to receive our future ballots via email and submit electronically.
okay, I'm wondering if we should go through each candidate or just the one that and we need to select one, right?
You guys do have to select and agree to one.
okay.
I believe that you had said you spoke with Director Jones and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I consulted with Director Jones, she's a LAFCO person, and we're looking at Lindsay Carter, Harold Fire Protection District as our selection. And then we got LAFCO special districts have the option of completing the election of a special district representatives via email. And do we want to approve the LAFCO distributing electronic ballot to districts that wish to receive them in the future? Is that a yes or no? Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
Well, someone should make a motion
Yes.
to
We're gonna have to take,
cast the ballot for a certain individual.
yes.
And then make a separate motion to answer the
Each
questions about
one.
electronic ballots.
Mm.
Thank you, council. All right, so we need a motion to for the candidate that we're selecting, Lindsay Carter.
Make a motion.
Okay, Director Sheets.
Second.
Okay, Director Costa, call the roll, please.
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
and Director Clark.
Aye. Okay, second motion we're gonna need is the, I just read it, but I'll read it again. Special districts have the option of completing, the election district representatives via email. And does our district, approve LAFCO distributing electronic ballots to districts that wish to receive them in the future?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is that to yes? to
Yes
approve?
or no?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, motion for yes. Okay,
I'll second the yes,
all right.
if need be.
Director Weber, second. Director Sheets, motion.
Okay, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, finally, in the future, does your district prefer to receive a ballot? It's valid via email and submit its vote electronically via fax, email, or scan ballot. Is
Make a
that,
motion.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, motion for yes, second.
Second.
Director Wood. All right, call the roll, please.
Yes. Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
Director Sheets,
Aye.
Director Wood,
Aye.
Director Costa,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, that completes our action items. Next, we go to reports. Where President's report, we do not have this to be at some other date. I'm sorry. Next, we'll go to Fire Chief's report.
Good evening, President Clark, directors, colleagues, members of the public. I'd like to start off first with some staff introductions, and it's my pleasure to introduce Engine 32B and Medic 32 Bravo Shift. That's Captain Eric Eichelman, Engineer Boyle Levesque, and Firefighter Dylan Jensen, Firefighter Paramedic Corey Mitchell, and Justin Palusha. Big thank you to those crews at Station 32 for being very proactive and exercising personal initiative in getting Station 32 ready for the August 19th open house, which some of you attended. This internal team effort saved the district approximately $40,000 by their internal efforts by not going out to outsource this or for bid. That was a great turnout for the event. I know some of you attended. A big thank you to all the division staff and CERT members for their help in putting together a successful event. If I could have Engine 32 and Medic 32 come up to the podium and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Eric Alekman. Dylan Jensen. Justin Paglusha. Corey Mitchell. Bo Levesque.
All right.
Just say a few quick words on behalf of these guys, and we're just a third. There's two other shifts, 15 of us in total, that did the work over at Station 32. We respond to a lot of emergency incidents, 24/7, 365 days a year. It's a lot of work. I can assure you that meticulously placing 30 yards of river rock and 80 yards of landscape art, that's a lot of work. But it was our pleasure. We're really proud of Station 32. We consider it to be the jewel of the district.
Yes.
We feel it's the nicest, most comfortable, most well-equipped station in the district, and it's our pleasure to work there. We spend, a third of our lives there, and we just want to be comfortable. But we also recognize that it's part of our job to be good stewards of the district's property and the funds that support everything. And so it's really not only just our pleasure, but it's all in a day's work, to be honest with you. Actually, maybe like 9 or 10 days work. But it's nice to be recognized. We appreciate it. Thanks very much for doing so, Chief House. And thanks again. Appreciate it.
I attended that meeting and Director Sheets, and that's a very nice station. You guys do really good work for the district and our constituents. So thank you very much.
You bet.
Right.
And fellas, I want to thank you personally. This takes me back to the roots of when I came into the fire service and back to really the esprit de corps and true ownership. And if I can call out Corey Mitchell to say hi. Corey lives around the corner and he brought over his personal tractor to assist in this operation also.
Oh.
So you talk about going above and beyond and really back to, I'm sure that resonates with Director Sailors and Weber and back to the roots of really old school fire service and esprit de corps. So thank you, fellas. And please tell the other two shifts the same. I truly appreciate your efforts.
Total dedication.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
All right, and I'm going to continue some introductions with some new hires.
We appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm standing up to my promise where I see us going in the future, and I think this is extremely important. So thank you for the opportunity for doing this. If you can please join me in welcoming Kyle McDonald, who has been hired for legislative analyst in the Planning and Development Division effective August 14th. Kyle, please come up to the podium, please, and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I am Kyle McDonald, and I'm very excited to officially be on board and to work with each of you, Chief, and everybody here and in the audience for our district. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
All right, and a promotion. I'd like to introduce and congratulate Cynthia Hamilton, who has been promoted to administrative specialist in the EMS division. Cynthia.
Good evening, everyone. A little about myself. When I started here, it was in 2013 as a temp office tech. And I got hired on and later in 2013 as an office tech and in EMS, and I absolutely love it. In my opinion, it's the best division. As the fire chief said, I recently got promoted and I am glad that I was able to stay in a division I love so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Thank you for allowing us to do this and move this direction. This is important stuff to put a face to a person. I think this is showing good health of the organization, and when we can do this internally and we put that face, that's huge reward.
And
so
then
thank you.
The district gets to see all the people who are doing the good work.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
That's right.
All right, on to some recruitment going on in the district. Some career development opportunities. Human Resources accepting letters of interest from the rank of captain for a training day captain assignment. Filing date on that is September 8th at 4 p.m. The district is also accepting applications internally and externally for the position of paramedic, which the filing date of that is September 29th at 4 p.m. We're also accepting applications of letters of interest, internal and external, for the position of operations data analysts in the operations division with the final filing date of October 13th by 4 p.m. We're also accepting letters of interest internally for the position of administrative specialists in the CRRD division with the filing date of September 15th at 4 p.m. Letters of interest internally for non-probationary firefighter paramedics and paramedics for the position of MMP drill instructor with a filing file date of September 20th by 4 p.m. This drill instructor position will be assisting the drill master Fader with the 23-2 paramedic Metro program academy class, which is anticipated to start on October 9th. We're also accepting letters of interest internally for the position of EMS systems technician in the EMS division with a filing date of September 27th by 4 p.m. I've committed to the board and my 45-day goal to meet every face in this organization. has been extremely successful. I'm about 3/4 of the way with that, with 6 meetings remaining. These have gone very well with great feedback. I look forward to collaborating and putting together that feedback and providing that to you and to all the members in the organization. Congratulations to the MMP Class 23-1, Strength Through Sacrifice, on their graduation from the Academy. The graduation was well attended, and the 18 MMPs are excited to start their new chapter of their career with Metro Fire. I continue to meet with our external stakeholders and have participated in several of these, some of these with Kyle. Thank you, Kyle, for navigating the lanes out there. Supervisor Desmond, Chiffon, Carthree, Department of Social Services, and some of the Sacramento County executives and elects and staff. And those meetings were 2x2s. These meetings went very well, and we had a huge shared interest on some of the stuff that I've talked to you about before with homeless initiative and how we're going to navigate those lanes with homeless and mental health. We're looking at collaborating and being good partners there, and very, very high interest on all those stakeholders. Additionally, Kyle McDonald and I attended the Rancho Cordova Area Chamber elected officials reception. Each year, over 120 community and business leaders participate in this event. This year's event was no exception. There was a great turnout. It provided the attendees the opportunity to connect with other community leaders and discuss issues impacting our community. And lastly, but certainly not least, it's an opportunity to talk about and address 9/11. It marked the 22nd anniversary of the terrorist attacks. On that fateful day, the world witnessed the bravery and unwavering commitment of firefighters who rushed into the danger and saved lives. It is essential we never forget those events on 9/11, the lives lost, and the lasting impact it had on our profession and our country. I'm humbled by the commitment we continue to demonstrate as a region in honoring the memories of those lost. I'm extremely proud of the level of presence and participation by Metro Fire members at this year's 9/11 stair climb. That event, again, was very successful, as you saw probably on the media. As you should have also been aware of, my message out several times, we lost a retiree. Assistant Chief Jim Hartley passed away on the evening of August 26th. Chief Hartley suffered a fall at his home on August 14th and had been in ICU since the incident. For those of you that did not know Chief Hartley, he retired from Metro Fire in January 2006 after 31 years of service. The fire service and ability to serve has always been in his passion. After his retirement from Metro Fire, he continued to serve the community by joining the El Dorado Hills Fire Department as a board member, a position he held at the time of the incident. A huge thank you to our members for assisting with the service planning and providing day-to-day assistance and Metro Fire family's presence at the Hartley service and celebration of life. If we could please keep Hartley's family in your thoughts. They're still grieving, obviously. And I believe at the end, President Clark will take a moment of silence. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
That's the end of my report, unless you have any questions.
Thanks, Chief. Do we have any questions? Thank you very much. All right, next we move on to operations report, and that'll be Chief Mitchell.
Thank you again, President Clark and everybody. The thank yous continue this evening. I wanted to give a big thank you to Captain Scott Lohmeyer, Captain Aaron Wynn, Engineer Mario Martinez, and Firefighter Tyson Layton, who attended the memorial service for CAL FIRE Captain Tim Rodriguez and Assistant Chief Josh Bischoff and their families in Southern California on Monday, August 21st and Thursday, August 24th. I'd like to thank also 522 and the collaboration on getting our members supported when they went down there, and also Fleet for the assistance in making sure that we had an apparatus to provide for those members to take down to those services. Wouldn't have happened without that collaboration. Having our members there to show the support for Captain Tim T-Rod Rodriguez and AC Josh Bischoff's families, CAL FIRE, and all the extended fire service family means a lot to us all. So rest in peace to those two members. And we'd also like to extend our condolences again to the contract pilot Tony Seuss's family and friends, who was also lost in the aviation accident that took all of their lives back in the early August timeframe. So thank you to those folks. Thank you to Coach Gallagher for facilitating a new FISM yoga program here that occurs in this room every Tuesday and Thursday between noon and 1 p.m. It's great to get all members are invited. A number of the support or professional staff attend. It's a yoga session that encourages movement, and you can probably imagine if you've all probably experienced sitting at a keyboard all day or not getting up and about, it's good to have that capability. And I will tell you, the instructor Eugene does a great job for everybody that comes to that event twice a week. And I can also attest that participating in it makes you feel very much alive. You can feel it for quite a while. So I know a number of folks in here, probably Jake and a few folks in here that come regularly. It is a great thing to support our folks in their long-term health. Our members on Monday, August 21st, our members responded to a structure fire. And unfortunately, one of our firefighters sustained a burn injury. The firefighter was transported to UC Davis for treatment by his battalion chief and his company, and he received super fast, quick, high quality and professional treatment as we would expect. I'm glad to report that he was released home to heal that day, and also to report that effective today, he's back at work, which is great news. Again, I think it's important to recognize and thank the burn clinic and their continued high level of care that our members receive when the need arises. They do a phenomenal job, as well as the Firefighter Specific Burn Institute. Joe Pick was there that day, so it was good to see his smiling face to receive the member. And as Joe always does, a very dynamic talking fashion. It was good to talk with him and help us through that process. So that was really, really appreciated. They always pick up the phone when we call, and we really love that partnership, and it pays off for our members. So get them healed quickly and back to work. Finally, a follow-up to an item that was brought up in the Finance and Audit Committee, a question regarding our AMR contract and what is the return on our investment in that new contract as far as adding those 2 additional units to the system that we started back on July 1st. We added two 12-hour units into the transport system, and then another duty that was included in that contract was a patient consolidation ability to bring in those units to Mercy San Juan Hospital when we started to see APOT issues and drawdown. And so looking at the data, it's only been around for a couple of months, but looking at the initial data, we're able to draw a few initial conclusions from that. These units definitely have a positive impact and have been reducing workload on our other units in the system. We're starting to see data that shows that, which is obviously what we want to see. The time on task is decreasing. I'm also happy to report that we are covering the cost of the additional units in the contract through our cost recovery mechanisms and billing for those services. So that's good news. And then we've also utilized that patient consolidation plan 6 different times since we instituted that process, releasing 12 ambulances back into the system from patient consolidation. And a vast majority of those, obviously the time on task decreased. They weren't on the wall. They were able to get some rest. A vast majority of those responded to an additional call for service while their patient was still waiting on the wall at the hospital. So it is having a positive impact on our system. We'll get more data as the sample size increases over time, then continue to look at that. But I thought that was a good output from that. And again, it's that follow-up from the Finance and Audit Committee question that came up a couple board meetings ago. And with that, concludes my operations report.
Thank you for that report. Do we have any questions? Thank you. Very, very good report. Next, we got the administrative report, Chief Development Officer Jeff Fry.
Thank you, President Clark, and good evening, everybody. Just a couple of notes from the admin branch. First, I'll start with human resources. Just want to give you an update on the TPA contract. HR staff is still meeting weekly with the TPA's transition team. The expected go live date is November 1st. Chief House hit a lot of the background and recruitment stuff. I will note that 9 paramedics are in backgrounds right now for the October 9th Academy, 23 firefighter paramedics, 15 external, 18 internal in backgrounds for the January 16th, 2024 Academy. A number of recruits, I think we mentioned the paramedic recruitment. I will highlight the recruitment for the data analyst, and I think this is a direct connection to the board where we've talked about integrating data analysis in our program here, trying to get to better decisions, anticipating. That position was a direct result of that. So it's a brand new concept here. We're excited about what it's going to give us moving forward. From community relations, we talked about the open house at Firehouse 32, very successful. Our community relations group estimated there's about 500 community members there. So, I mean, that's wonderful, right? That's what we want. So, by all accounts, successful event. Station dedication coming up for engineer Kyle Rutherford and Captain Mike Guzman. That is on September 28th. An announcement with all the details has been released. Interesting one. We, through a collaboration through many of us, partnered with the California Special District Association to bring awareness to water infrastructure issues as it pertains to firefighting. So it's been a local push for a long time. It's turned into a bit of a federal campaign. What CSDA want to do is put together Metro Fire with Sac Suburban Water District and create a virtual tour of both agencies and talk about the need for better water infrastructure with a specific eye to funding. And create some awareness at the state legislature and the federal level about what better looks like. So we kind of leaned into the plan, and Captain Wilborn, along with Kyle McDonald, connecting through the ledge side of this equation, got together. I think with Chief House did a video. This led to some other opportunities that we think we're going to be able to bring you here in a couple of weeks and talk about it. But I think to the board's point is the opportunity being more involved, having those connections with our stakeholders leads to good opportunities. It's just taking the initiative to do those type of things. So we were excited about that. Moving on to finance. I'm going to read this one. Finance fraud investigation. Controller Ron Empedrad has initiated the financial fraud risk assessment that will involve personnel interviews and examining policies used by finance, IT, logistics, human resources, and purchasing divisions. Using tools developed by the Government Finance Office of America, along with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. The controller will be looking for things like insufficient physical controls over assets, check tampering schemes, purchasing and billing schemes, payroll schemes, fraudulent financial reports, and the theft of inventory and equipment. This assessment was discussed at, looks like in February with the Finance and Audit Committee. And I believe we are going to completely do this in-house. So CFO Tool anticipates completion and presentation to the committee in October. So moving on to planning and development, standard of cover. I'm going to say it. We're going to try to, we heard from Director Gould, you want early awareness of this. It is a giant document. We're going to attempt to send it to you tomorrow. So we have gone through about 300 comments internally to make this product better. It is a lot of information. I think it's going to answer all kinds of stuff for you. And I expect you're going to have all kinds of questions for me. So we're excited. We did it. We're there. Our intent is while you're reviewing it, we want our community partners to review it. We want to get it to the county and cities. We want the membership to review it. So while everyone's taking the time and getting the idea of it, it'll allow us to put some finishing touches on it. And then we'll bring it back to the board in the future for the policy side of this equation. So here it comes after a couple of years of work. I did want to quickly hit on the social services meeting that Chief House mentioned. Again, tying it to some board directives. Just as we think about the bigger problems of facing the district, it's going to take these kind of partnerships to solve. And there's going to be many pieces we have to address. Some of them legislative, some of them cooperative, a lot to uncover. So some of the topics that we talked about was tied to the standard of cover. We want them to look at our risk assessment tied to homelessness, tied to some of our EMS type calls. Now remember the LIMSA and social services and all of those folks report up through the Kathari branch and social services. So to have those connections and understand the bigger issue, I think is going to lead to better problem solving. We also talked about access to alternate funding at the state and federal level, partnering on legislation to extend MIH type programs, and coordinating on some of the safe sites for the homelessness coming up. So I thought it was a great meeting. I was really excited about it, and there's a lot for us to follow up on our end. Aaron and I met with Rancho Cordova a few weeks ago now with their community development director and the planning manager to discuss our intent to buy those 3 acres you heard about for a new station site. And also what I call the pre-application meeting for the Zinfandel project. So just trying to understand kind of the technical side of what's next and getting ready for those projects. So you will see a notable shift from us moving out of the standard of cover and then moving to more project management, real estate side of the equation, which I think we're all excited for. So I think with that, I'll end my report. Do you have any questions for me?
Hearing none, thank you for a great report.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff. We have support services report. Deputy Chief Wagaman, welcome.
Thank you, President Clark, Board of Directors, Chief House and staff. Tyler Wagaman, Deputy Chief of Support Services with your support report. And I got 2 weeks worth of stuff for you, so hang in there. First and foremost, I too want to acknowledge Station 32. All 3 shifts, job well done. Thank you for the tractor work as well. We might have to subcontract with you to get some other work done. But in addition to that, what they have done is they've shown members throughout this district what you're capable of. We do a great job fighting fire each day and running medical calls, but we do other great things too. And there's a lot of folks out there that could step up and help out. Know that we have a shoestring budget to get a lot of work done, and you took one of those major projects right off our list. That's appreciated. That same work is occurring at Station 42 right now. So as much as some people might cringe at all of the requests that come in after one of these projects, I don't. This is exactly what we do. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Next, I'd like to put a spotlight on one of our facilities staff, one of our facilities technicians, Aldre. Aldre is our HVAC expert. As you can imagine, how many AC units that we have throughout our entire district, over 100-degree days. He is working one job to the next. He does this year round. It saves us an enormous amount of money. He gets the job right done. He gets the job right every single time. During the last heat wave, he was working all day at one of our stations, replacing a Plymobit. Why? Because they do multiple tasks, not just HVAC, all day long, probably 130 degrees on a super hot day in a bay. He spent all day there. I went back to Fleet and dropped off his vehicle, went home, and right when he got home, he got a phone call that Station 27's AC was out. And for those of you that know Station 27, it's small. They have one AC unit, over 100-degree day. That evening was still cranking hot. And we want to make sure our firefighters stay comfortable. We don't want hot firefighters getting in a hot fire apparatus and running a hot structure fire, right? It doesn't work well for us. So any opportunity we can to keep our firefighters cool, we do. And Aldre understood that. He jumped right back in his vehicle, went back to Fleet, picked up his work vehicle, went out to Station 27 and did everything that he could to get them back up and running. This is one instance. This occurs numerous times a year. One employee times 750 members. That's the power of Metro Fire. And again, I could talk to you about story after story after story, but tonight he gets the spotlight. So thank you for your efforts, Aldre.
Thank you.
Station 101, sheetrock tape texture paint is complete. Never has fresh paint smelled so good. Station 105, the same. Tape texture paint cabinets and countertops looks amazing, but I'm not going to show it to you until it's all done. On the fleet front, first, we received the first round of specifications for our new squads, total of 3 of them, under final review right now. That has not slowed the process at all. They're still looking for chassis for us, so understand that project is still underway. 3 new Type 1 engines I reported out during the last report. They are at Fleet. They're going to be going to Station 106, Station 65, Station 51. So congratulations to the citizens of Arden Arcade, Gold River, and Florin. 5 new ambulances I also reported out, 4 of which are already in service. We needed them that bad. So kudos to Fleet getting them through their facility quickly. Our communication staff with putting all the computers and radios in them and get them out, as well as our logistics folks putting all the EMS equipment on them before they hit the road. So Station Medic 62, Medic 65, Medic 111, and Medic 24 have brand new ambulances out on the street today. As previously mentioned 2 weeks ago, myself and Fleet Manager Shay Purcell went back to Wisconsin to Pierce to look at their new Volterra fire engine. It's their full electric fire engine. And it was interesting, to say the least. It is the same footprint or platform of the fire apparatuses that we purchased today, both the Velocity and the Enforcer. They look identical. The only thing that's different is between the cab and the pump panel, there is a 18-inch section that slices through the entire apparatus that has all the high voltage, the batteries, and all that stuff. That coupled with one other item is different, and that is the transmission. And they call it the EMIVT, which is electromechanical and infinitely variable transmissions, a single speed transmission. It runs off the electricity, the high voltage system. You get 60 miles off of it, off of a charge. And for most of our medical aids, that would be appropriate. And in the event that there is a low power or a power outage, there's a diesel engine on board with 50 gallons of fuel. So it can run either or. So 99% of the time it's running electric. If at any time you want to go diesel, it can run diesel as well. In fact, I drove the fire engine at 45 miles an hour and I turned the diesel engine on and it didn't even skip a beat. And then we pumped later that day at 110 PSI on one of the hose lines, and we switched it back and forth 5 times between full electric and diesel combustion. And it didn't even skip a beat. So Pierce is doing it right. They still have some work to do. Right now, they have partnered with Madison, Wisconsin, and has had one of their electric vehicles there now for going on 2 years. To date, they have not run in diesel mode one time. Slower fire department, though. They have also recently partnered with Seattle, Washington for a high call volume fire agency. Gilbert, Arizona, that's the engine that we saw when we were there. So it was probably getting delivered now, and that's for heat. So, and the last one, they're going to send up and deep into Canada to see if they can freeze these batteries as much as they can, just to make sure that their engineering is right on par. So again, yeah, still some work yet to do, but I thought it was a very interesting, important trip for us as we prepare as the mandates continue to come down through the state of California. Some fun facts, charging. These are big batteries, big fire engine. The slow charger, which is 240 volts, 50 amps. So that's your standard spa connection at your house. It'll take 2 days to charge that fire apparatus. The medium rate charger, which is 480 volts, 3-phase, 50 kilowatt at 100 amps, will take 5 hours. And the charger that is recommended, which ties into our future fire stations and something that we certainly need to plan for, is 480 volt, 3-phase, 150 kilowatt, 250 amps, and it'll charge in 90 minutes. Not something you want to do during peak rates. Yeah, we'll definitely pay the price for that, but very important trip, very useful. And President Clark, you had some questions regarding training, and I posed that question. Right. And these are certainly unique and require specialized training for our mechanics. And as these start to trickle out throughout the United States, it will require first a 2-day familiarization class. Next will be the second phase of the high voltage orientation, which is a 3-day class, followed by their actual certification class, which is another 3-day high voltage training hands-on. And again, these apparatus are identical to what we have. Everything on it is identically the same. You just can't touch the electrical components to this unless you have these classes. Which is certainly the classes we would recommend anyway with this kind of voltage. I hope you found that information useful. Moving on to our communications division, Steve Jordan's here with us this evening. A few of the things that his division is working on, collaborating with the Sacramento County DOT Smart City Grant opportunity to trial cloud-based emergency vehicle preemption efforts to reduce response times and create safer intersections for our members. No better time than now. I can tell you recently, we have had an uptick of vehicle accidents at our intersections, and anything that we can do to safeten that intersection for our members as well as the community, we're certainly interested in. It's a challenging time out there. People have their stereos blaring, they have their smartphones, they're not paying attention, and sometimes it's too late, and we don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to see anybody hurt. So we certainly want to tap into technologies if we could make it just a little bit safer. Recently, they finished the 6 new ambulances that are slowly trickling into service, as well as now they're working on those 3 Type 1 fire engines, getting them ready for service. They're also working with the facilities division at Station 101 and 105, replacing the alerting equipment that was damaged during those 2 fires. Lastly, on the IT front, it's 2023, so they're increasing their cybersecurity presence. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. They're developing more cybersecurity training for all of our members here at Metro Fire. And last is they're starting the installation of phase 3 of our fire station access control project. This is a project that we've been working on for quite some time, and at the completion of this phase 3, in order to get into our secure fire stations, it will require either a personal code that each firefighter has or an ID card with fob built into that ID card. So we'll be a little bit more secure tomorrow than we are today. Well, that concludes my report unless you have any questions for me.
Do you have any questions? Excellent report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Good news. Finally, we have firefighters local 522, and DC Cole is not there, but that's Sean Scholar.
Not Matt again, it's me, sorry.
Sean. Sean Scholar.
Perfect. I think my name will get on that list one day. We'll see.
No, we were aware from the last time. We got that fixed. Our minds.
I do. It was Scott, right?
Yeah, it was
Scott. I think it's because Scott Perryman, but he's a good guy as well. So I want to start off this evening. Thank you, President Clark, members of the board, Chief House, executive staff, members of the public, a lot of my colleagues this evening. Thank you very much. Sean Scholar, Director, Local 522, filling in for Matt Cole. His flight got canceled in Denver, and it was just easier for him to just stay and get a flight to Colorado Springs for the memorial. So here I am. So what's nice about that is I get to talk about whatever I want. So, and hopefully represent the membership well. I'd like to start by echoing what Chief House said about the memorial stair climb this year, downtown Sac. It was fantastic. Great turnout for Metro Fire. Got to see Chief House out there, Director Weber, Chief Mitchell was there. A lot of white helmets climbing the stair climb this year, which was fantastic. I think I saw Chief Farik out there climbing. So it was nice to see a diverse group of our organization out there climbing. Like every year, there's recruits that fill in for those that can't make it. And so there was recruits, I think it was from Sierra College and ARC. And so we happen to have a small group of those with us in our group that was climbing. And so we were able to start picking their brains and trying to sell them on Metro Fire and why this agency is the best, right? So it's a great opportunity for us to give them some information on our organization. One thing that kind of stood out to me though is that the recruit told me that they don't know anything about Metro Fire. It's not really talked about because in the ARC Fire Academy, it's a lot of Sac City instructors. So took that as an opportunity to tell them everything about our organization and even have some ride along set up for those folks to do it. So maybe we can get more of a part or presence in that academy, given that it's right in our district. And
Director Gould.
I know we have a big part in the paramedic program, but it would nice to see us get a little bit more face in the fire recruit side of it. So especially a lot of those folks are living in our districts first in. And so yeah, I'd love to see that moving forward. I will give a shout out though. The only member of Metro Fire that I heard, and nobody's going to be surprised by this, but Tyler Kraft. Tyler Kraft is there and filling in as an adjunct instructor, which is no surprise because everybody knows Tyler Kraft. So good for him representing our organization. So but that was a phenomenal climb. Definitely feeling it, as I'm sure everybody is. So but it's always good to get out there and remember remember all the people that lost their lives that day. Kind of a unfortunate fact that was presented to us on that morning is that there are 342 firefighters that have lost their lives as a result of related illnesses to going and helping. And so that one kind of hit home that day, I think, for a lot of us to realize that we've almost exhausted the amount of firefighters that actually lost their lives that day, just from those that have died from job-related illnesses as a result of 9/11. So when we talk about never forgetting and remembering those, it's also the people that have lost their lives as a result of that. And so that was a good opportunity to be able to share that with some of those newer recruits. A lot of them weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. So, you know, they don't get it as much as I think some of us do that were alive, or those that were in the fire service when it happened. I wasn't in the fire service at the time, but it's something that we need to keep in mind. In relation to that, we have Colorado Springs Memorial. We have a lot of members out there right now. It's the national memorial that's going to be honoring one of our own. Engineer Kyle Rutherford's name's going to be going on the wall in Colorado Springs. His family's out there, which is fantastic. A lot of instrumental members of our organization that helped the family during that process are going to be out there. So Honor Guard, we have members representing our organization that are there with the Honor Guard. So thank you to everybody that had a part in that. Thank you for everybody that sacrificed their time to go out and do the work parties at the Rutherford's family's house and all that. It's another time for us to remember. So in addition to that, we have the California Fallen Firefighters Memorial coming up October 14th. Rutherford and Biddy's names are going to be going on the wall on October 14th, in addition to Merzinski Sr., who retired as a chief of Rockland Fire, but I know has strong ties to this organization as well. So October 14th, that'll be a big day for us to also remember some of our own. So keep that date in the back of your mind. Labor management, we have scheduled for September 20th. It's going to be a big meeting. I think it's scheduled for 48 hours, something like that, or probably drag out to be 48 hours. So planning on bringing cots and sleeping bags and just camping out here. I've requested bunk beds multiple times for Matt's office because I feel like we're here all the time, but we'll see how labor management works out. It's a good thing though. I think we have a lot to accomplish and get done, and I have hope that we will. So looking forward to that. Following that, we have a Metro unit meeting on the 21st. So we're going to be able to provide a lot of information that comes out of labor management to the unit meeting, because we always get questions. We try to have those unit meetings following labor management just so we can give transparency on the communications that are happening from a labor front, making sure that the membership's voices are actually being heard, and the problems that they have or issues that are coming up are actually being discussed. So 21st for that. Lastly, I just want to leave you with this. I know there's going to be some changes with union leadership coming up, and so I wanted to at least let you guys know. Matt said he's not going to be running again, despite our blackmail efforts on him to try and continue the great job that he's been doing. We'll probably have some change in some union leadership and some vacant positions and directors, and we're going to have elections and things like that. But I just want to give you a guarantee that whoever is in that next position, that we're going to continue doing exactly what we're doing. It's going to be a collaborative effort with labor and management. We have a great vision of where we need to get as an organization. We're going to be working together. So no matter who's sitting up here giving this report, that we're going to keep the vision that we have in the path moving forward and make it a collaborative effort. And that's all I have.
Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you very much for a great report.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Great job. All right. Now we're going to move on to committee and delegate reports. Executive committee, the next meeting will be to be determined. Communications Center JPA, AC Green.
Thank you, President Clark. Directors, Chief House, everyone. Chris Green, Assistant Chief in the Operations Branch and a board member for the Communications Center JPA. I've got some tough facts to follow tonight. I promise you my report is not as exciting. Kudos to all the news with everyone else. But I do have some information in here that's quite monumental for the comm center to share tonight. But before I get to that, since your last meeting, our board has met twice. On August 22nd, we approved just general planned expenditures for information technology related items, hardware, software, and pulse point upgrades. We also met on September 12th, approved the renewal of a GIS support package through the same contractor Axum that's been used in the past, and also signed a resolution. This is really a monumental moment for the comm center. Over the last year, the executive director worked with a third-party consultant to produce a strategic plan, a first in quite a long time, if not ever, for the comm center. The strategic plan, I would say to translate, is very similar to what you've put together collaboratively, but every member of the comm center, from newest to most senior in every single position, had an opportunity to provide input. And very collaborative process. This blueprint is through the year 2030 for the next 7 years. And it focuses primarily on the people and the technology that the people use and the culture around that. The current executive staff has a big task ahead of them in the next couple of months to implement some immediate action items by the end of this calendar year, as well as several items within the next 12 months. All the other items in this plan are projected over the next 6 years after that, which hinge on budgets and so forth. So I was not part of this process. I came in as a board member very later, but very privileged to be able to vote very proudly and unanimously to move this forward. I'll work with the board clerk to get you a copy of this. At the very least, it is a very good educational tool as to what goes on over there. And we continue to have a great partnership moving forward. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions? All right, thank you very
Absolutely.
much for that report. Okay, Finance and Audit Committee, Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I missed the last Finance and Audit Committee, so I would like to ask Director Weber if he could let us know what happened.
Thank you. Everything that was presented in that meeting was presented tonight with CFO O'Toole. A couple of items in that, though, that it was very comforting to know that we were, from all of the funding sources, that we were trending in a positive direction. And a few months ago, we were talking about reserves and percentages of those reserves, and we were having feeling that we were going to be even dipping below the 12%. So I was very, very happy to hear at that meeting and tonight that not only did we not dip, but we've increased it to 14%. So very pleased with the direction that we are heading. Did you want to announce the next meeting? Because that's the end of the report for that. Again, it was presented this evening. So the next Finance and Audit Committee will be held September 28th at 5 p.m. in this room.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Next, Policy Committee, Director Costa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's policy committee meeting was canceled. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 12th. Send a report.
All right. Thank you. Next, we're at the board member questions and comments. This, we know it's a long meeting. I hope everybody's doing all right. Director Costa, would you start off, please?
All right, I'll try to keep it quick. Despite the long meeting, I think we've had some fantastic presentations.
Oh, amazing.
And Chief, I want to thank you for your leadership. You stepped up, you laid out a plan, you started implementing that plan. I know the board has provided some feedback, some opportunity, and you didn't hesitate. You started implementing. So thank you. I think we saw that tonight in the presentations. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to put together those presentations, including the information like the PowerPoints, because I know for myself, it helps me be better prepared for the meetings. I know for the public, it helps them be better prepared for what we're doing and where we're going. So thank you for all your work. End of report or end of comments.
Okay, thank you. Director Sailors.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for turning my mic on. Thank you, Art. I too want to say thank you to everyone for the presentations and thank you, Chief House, for allowing doing the announcements for the promotions for everyone out there tonight. I just want to do a quick announcement. This Saturday, downtown Rio Linda is having their country fair. It's a big thing in Rio Linda. There's usually like 5,000 people that come to it. Metro Fire will be there. It is a huge recruitment opportunity for the reserves for Station 116. It starts in the morning at 8 o'clock with a breakfast at the Rio Linda Community Center, and it goes till 4 p.m. Mr. President, I would like to bring up an issue that has come up in my district in the Rio Linda, Alberta area. A constituent by the name of Mr. Glover has come forward with concerns about some service delivery concerns concerning water tender 116. Could we please agendize this for our next meeting?
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all for me tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director. Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to say anything, but Sean Scholar brought up, made a comment that I want to address. It's horrific that we've lost 342 firefighters since they met and responded to the events on 9/11. There are thousands more or hundreds more that are sick and ill. And over the last 22 years, they've had to fight tooth and nail to get the benefits and the attention and the treatment that they deserve. And the people that they've fought are a number of elected representatives from around the country. So for those who, as we get ready to go into a rough season or an interesting series of elections in the next 12 months or more, I just want to implore and remind all our men and women to look deep into these issues, think about who they're looking into and know who they're voting for, because there are a number of people in our community that represent our communities that have voted against the interest of your brothers and sisters that are sick and have died in New York. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Great comment. Director Sheets.
Thank you for the presentations tonight. Also want to congratulate the MMP members and their graduation and the employees that have gotten help me out.
Promoted.
Thank you. Sorry, it's late. And then also a big thank you to Station 32, all the shifts, all the hard work. It was a beautiful station before. It's an absolutely gorgeous station now. And it was a great event. So a big thank you. And I agree. I'm a little partial. I do think that's one of the best stations.
Thank you. Director Weber.
I have no comments.
All right. All right. Seeing that I'm the last person. And after this, I will call for a moment of silence before we recess to closed session for Chief Harley, and also remembrance of the lives lost in 9/11. Great reports tonight. I mean, though it's a long meeting, a great. Chief, once again, thank you for your leadership. It's just, I'm just impressed. You're doing a good job, and ditto to everything else that's been said. You know, all the great reports. So before we go to a closed session, I'd like us to stand for a moment of silence for Chief Hartley and the 9/11 victims. Thank you. We'll have a bio break.
Yeah, I did want to say the next board meeting is scheduled to be at Station 111, so we'll not be here in this room.
Recording stopped.